Most people think retirement is a number, a target, a giant pile of money sitting in an account somewhere with your name on it. But that idea is exactly why so many people spend decades saving and still end up terrified when work finally stops. Because retirement is not about having a big balance. It is about replacing a paycheck, and those are not the same thing. A balance can shrink. Income can continue. A balance can be eaten alive by inflation, taxes, and bad timing. Income, when it is built the right way, keeps showing up month after month, whether you work or not. That is where almost everyone gets this wrong. They focus on owning assets, but they never think carefully enough about what those assets are supposed to do. The goal is not to collect random investments and hope they somehow turn into freedom later. The goal is to buy assets that can step in and do the job your salary used to do. In this video, I'm going to show you the 3 assets that can make that happen. But even more important than the assets themselves is the sequence. Because if you build them in the wrong order, they can create pressure instead of freedom. One asset can drain cash you need for another. One mistake can lock up liquidity at the exact moment you need flexibility. And what looks smart on paper can become very expensive in real life. So by the end of this, you are going to understand the real game. Not just what these 3 assets are, but why the order you build them in matters so much if your goal is to replace your salary in retirement. Because the people who retire with confidence usually do not have the biggest pile of money. They have the strongest income system. And that is a completely different way to think about retirement. Enough dependable income to feel truly secure. On paper, they may have a decent account balance, but in real life, they are still unsure whether that money can reliably replace a paycheck month after month. That is where the real problem starts. It's not just that people saved too little. It's that they were taught to focus on growing a number, not on building assets that are designed to keep producing income after work stops. So even when someone does everything the usual way, contributes to retirement accounts, invests consistently, and avoids overspending, they can still end up with a system that feels fragile. Why? Because a large balance alone does not guarantee stability. If the plan depends on slowly drawing money down, then retirement can start to feel less like freedom and more like watching a pile get smaller every year. That is the flaw in the standard model. It teaches accumulation, but not income design. And if your assets are not built to pay you, then the moment your salary disappears, the weakness in the whole plan becomes obvious. The shift starts with one simple idea. Stop thinking about retirement as a pile of money and start thinking about it as a system that produces income. A balance sitting in an account can look impressive, but it doesn't automatically create freedom. It still has to be managed, protected, and slowly spent. What actually changes your life is cash flow. When your assets begin sending money to you on a regular basis, retirement stops feeling like a countdown and starts feeling like replacement. The goal is no longer to protect a number. The goal is to build income streams that can do the job your paycheck used to do.
That is why the standard retirement model feels shaky for so many people, even when the math looks acceptable on paper. Most traditional advice is built around withdrawal rates, market averages, and the hope that your timing will be good enough. But real life does not move in straight lines. Markets fall, inflation rises, and unexpected expenses show up at the worst time. So when your entire plan depends on selling pieces of a portfolio month after month, retirement can feel uncertain, even if you technically have enough. That is exactly why income-producing assets matter. They reduce the pressure to sell, and they make your plan feel more stable in the real world, not just in a calculator. The first asset that can replace part of a salary is rental real estate. Not because it's flashy, and not because property values always go up, but because a well-bought rental can produce monthly cash flow. That is the real objective. The goal is not to gamble on appreciation or stretch for some perfect deal. The goal is to buy conservatively, use real numbers, keep reserves, and own properties that make financial sense from day one. When real estate is approached that way, it stops being speculation and starts becoming an income tool. Think about someone with a regular job who buys one small rental property, then another a few years later, and maybe one more after that. Nothing dramatic, nothing glamorous, just steady progress. Over time, those properties begin producing enough monthly income to cover a large part of basic living expenses. That is what makes real estate powerful. It does not need to look impressive from the outside. It just needs to work quietly and consistently. A few solid properties bought with discipline can do far more for retirement than a dozen bad deals bought for excitement. But real estate alone is not enough. It can be strong, but it's not perfectly liquid, and it comes with its own kind of risk. Repairs happen, tenants leave, cash can get tied up. So if your entire retirement income depends on one asset class, the plan still has a weak point. That is why the second layer needs to be something more liquid, something market-based, but still designed to produce income rather than force you to sell under pressure. That brings in the second asset, dividend-paying investments. Dividend stocks and dividend-focused ETFs can create a stream of cash flow without requiring you to sell pieces of the portfolio every month. That difference matters. Instead of depending only on price appreciation, you own assets that can pay you while you continue holding them. And when those dividends are reinvested over time, the income can grow on its own. The focus here is not chasing the highest yield on the screen. It's owning durable companies or diversified funds that can pay steadily and grow those payments over the years. There's also a psychological difference that matters more than people expect. Receiving income from investments feels completely different from watching yourself sell down a portfolio. Even if the math can be made to work both ways, the emotional experience is not the same. One feels like your assets are supporting you. The other can feel like you are slowly dismantling the machine that is supposed to protect you. Retirement is not lived inside a spreadsheet. It's lived in the mind and in daily life. And the more your plan feels like income instead of depletion, the more sustainable it becomes emotionally.
The third asset is a diversified portfolio built for flexibility, growth, and smart withdrawals. This is the broad foundation that gives the other assets room to work. It includes retirement accounts, taxable investments, and tax-free buckets arranged in a way that gives you options later. This asset may not feel as exciting as real estate or as comforting as dividend income, but it is often the structural base that holds the whole plan together. And when withdrawals are handled intelligently, it can dramatically improve how long your money lasts. This is where the hidden advantage comes in. Retirement income is not only about what your assets generate, it is also about what you keep after taxes. Two people can produce the same gross income in retirement and end up living on very different net amounts, simply because one understands account structure and the other does not. When you use the right combination of taxable accounts, tax-deferred accounts, and tax-free accounts, you can reduce unnecessary tax drag and lower the amount of capital you need in the first place. In other words, smarter withdrawals can do the work of a much larger portfolio. Imagine someone who starts by building a strong investment base through retirement accounts and a taxable portfolio. After that foundation is in place, they begin adding rental properties carefully, one at a time, using reserves instead of overextending themselves. Then, as the portfolio continues growing, they add dividend-focused investments that can compound for years before becoming an income source. By the time retirement arrives, they do not depend on one thing. They have a diversified portfolio for flexibility, real estate for cash flow, and dividend income for consistency. Together, those three assets begin replacing most or all of what their salary used to provide. And the order matters more than most people realize. The portfolio foundation comes first because liquidity gives you stability. It gives you reserves, flexibility, and breathing room.
Real estate comes second once you have enough base capital to handle vacancies, repairs, and bad timing without creating panic. Dividend income comes third because it becomes most powerful when it has time to compound and grow before you need to live on it. Liquidity first, cash flow assets second, compounding income third. That sequence reduces stress and makes each asset stronger because it is being built on the right base. When those pieces come together, retirement starts to feel completely different. Instead of waking up and wondering whether the money will last, you begin to live from systems that keep producing. The fear does not disappear because risk never disappears, but uncertainty becomes much more manageable. You are no longer depending on one shrinking account or one fragile formula. You are living from multiple streams of support, and that changes the entire emotional experience of retirement. So the real lessons are simple. Define retirement by the income you need, not by some random net worth goal. Build assets that are designed to pay you consistently, not just sit there looking valuable on paper. And structure everything intelligently so taxes, bad timing, and forced withdrawals do not wreck a plan that should have worked. That is how you move from accumulation to actual independence. Because in the end, relying only on your job is one of the biggest financial risks most people ever accept without questioning. As long as your paycheck is the only thing holding the system up, your entire financial life depends on one source. The sooner you begin building assets that can produce income without your labor, the sooner work stops being something you must do and starts becoming something you can choose.